So when it comes to home performance, most people think, how low are my energy bills gonna be? Do I need more insulation to kind of bring down those energy bills? But really, it's more than just the energy efficiency of the home. When I think of performance, I think of how does the house perform, and you've got more than just air in the house. Now we're gonna go over all the things that we did to make this house more energy efficient, but I also want to think about water. Now when it comes to water treatment and making sure that you've got a good quality water, the thing that we had to deal with here is we're on a well. So we've got a bunch of different things going on that we need to remedy. So luckily we were able to stuff all of that filtration in this closet underneath of the stairs. When it came to my water filtration, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. So I reached out to Aquasana and they put me in touch with one of their water specialists. Now, I was able to give them all of my water test results and they built a system for me with all the filtration that I would need. They gave me this piece of paper which basically shows the layout of the system and all the components that I'll need, including a pre-filter, a low maintenance pre-filter, which is going to filter out most of the sediment as it comes into the system. And then back here, I've got two filters that are for iron. One is just an iron oxidizer, and then the other one is an iron oxidizer post filter, which is going to take all the iron out of my system, which is essentially all those yellow stains, yellow orangey stains that are in the toilet bowls and the sinks and stuff like that. We won't have any problems with that anymore. Then the water comes around here and we've got the Rhino whole house filter. And the Rhino whole house filter basically extends the life of the system and inhibits bacteria and algae growth, and it has activated carbon in it. Once it passes through that, then it goes to the salt-free water conditioner, which essentially is like a water softener that you don't have to add salt to. Now, that is going to eliminate the scale in the house, that is the buildup on the faucets and stuff that kind of limits the water flow. Now, after that water goes through that filter, then it gets to the post filter, which is going to eliminate any of the remaining sediment that's in the line. And then finally coming around and going through the UV filter, which is going to kill any bacteria left in the water. So one other thing that we're dealing with in our water, which is kind of unique to this area and somewhat rare, is that we actually have arsenic in the water. It's not crazy high, but it is high enough that we need to put in some sort of system to remove that arsenic for the water, especially for drinking water. Now, we did put in a arsenic reduction filter in the entire house, which will remove it from all of the taps. However, for drinking water specifically, because we do drink a lot of water, we wanted to install a reverse osmosis system. Now, this SmartFlow reverse osmosis system from Aquasana not only removes all that arsenic, but it remineralizes the water, and it also, their SmartFlow system produces less waste. So the problem with reverse osmosis is that there's a lot of waste as it's going through that filtration system, and it kind of spits that waste back into the drain. Now this system will produce less of that while still keeping that pure water. Now eventually this system will get installed under the sink with a single faucet or a secondary faucet above the sink. Obviously our countertops and our sinks are not in, but once those go in, we'll install this system and we'll have that pure drinking water. The other thing I love that Aquasana did was not only did they define a system for me, but they also gave me a replacement schedule for each one of these filters. And not only do they offer just the replacement schedule, but they offer a subscription service to the filters so that just show up and we replace them when they show up in the mail. So we talked about water filtration and getting the water quality up to par. However, the other key component in any water system is going to be your water heater. Now, when it comes to water heaters for a house, you've got essentially two options. One is a tanked option, which is going to obviously take up a lot more space, but it is also going to heat all that water that's in that tank continuously throughout the life of the water heater. So once that water runs out, you use all that water up, then you've got no hot water until you can regenerate that hot water inside of that tank, which is why a lot of people are going to a tankless option like this one behind me. And the nice thing about that is it only heats the water as you need it. So as far as energy bills go, they're a lot lower. However, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that tankless water heaters require a lot more maintenance than a tanked water heater. For instance, you really should be flushing these units once a year in order to descale the heat exchanger. Now, most heat exchangers are made of copper, which any scale buildup or oxidation inside of that heat exchanger could cause a leak and corrosion, which I know very well because I have 3 tankless water heaters in my house, and one of them I've already had to replace the heat exchanger on, which is why we ended up going with the new Adapt tankless water heater from A.O. Smith with their scale prevention technology. I love this feature because, or there's a couple features here, but they've got their X3 cartridge on the bottom of this, so the water comes in and gets filtered through the X3 cartridge, which contains a resin which changes the molecular structure of the water so that you don't have any scale buildup in the heat exchanger. But not only that, they went a step further, and I've already removed some screws so I can show you, but inside of this unit is not a copper heat exchanger. It's actually a heavy duty stainless steel heat exchanger, which is also going to limit or eliminate that corrosion that could take place inside of the heat exchanger. So as far as maintenance goes on this unit, it's virtually none. You don't really have to flush this unit. The cartridge itself will last forever since it's a resin cartridge and not just a typical filter that you have to swap out. So as far as the maintenance goes, they've got that problem solved. The other thing that they did was they incorporated a built-in recirculation pump, which is going to recirculate the water from the furthest tap throughout the system and make sure that you've got hot water throughout your lines all the time, ready to go, even at your furthest faucet. A couple other things to mention are that this is ENERGY STAR certified, and that not only that, but it has ultra low NOx, which is essentially greenhouse gases that this exhausts, since this one is powered with natural gas. And overall, I'm super happy with this unit and I'm glad to have it in our house. And if you want to learn more about A.O. Smith's new Adapt tankless water heaters with scale prevention technology, I'll put a link in the description below, but also you can check them out at hotwater.com. Okay, so we've got the water quality treatment system covered, and then we also covered the heating of that water for showers and whatnot. Now, when it comes to the air inside your house, there are a few different things that fall under the home performance umbrella. And one is the efficiency of the system, your HVAC system, the air tightness of the house, and then also the air quality. As far as HVAC system goes, we went with the Cooper & Hunter mini splits, and one thing I love about them is not only are they awesome units that you can control from anywhere, they're smart, you know, you connect to your phone and all that stuff, but they are extremely efficient because the mini splits don't have to push the air through ducts, and there's some losses there within those ducts. You've just got a vent right here by this air handler. The system overall is going to be a lot more efficient. Now, we've just got the 2x8 joist, so we also didn't want to run ducting through the house and have a bunch of soffits and stuff through here, which is another reason why we went with the mini splits. Now, not only is there kind of the typical wall mounted mini split, but there's a couple of different options that I really want to show you upstairs. So one type of mini split that you may not have seen before is a one-way cassette. So this is a one-way cassette from Cooper & Hunter, and there is one in this bedroom, which is the guest bedroom, and there's also another one in the kids' bunk room. The thing that I love about this is it recesses into the ceiling, so all that big part of the air handler is actually recessed into the ceiling. Now, we couldn't do that down below because the ceiling joists were not tall enough to accept the entire unit. So we were able to do that up here though, because we've got the attic above. The other thing that I love about doing mini splits in this house is we can control each space independently. So if a guest is in this room and they want it cooler at night, they can adjust the temperature on the remote or the wall thermostat to whatever they want. Same thing with the kids, and downstairs below in the first level. Now, one thing I should mention is that another issue that people have with mini splits is that they're not efficient down below a certain temperature. Now this condenser is from Cooper & Hunter. It's their Hyperline. This controls all of our mini splits inside. Now the cool thing about this is actually rated to be efficient down to negative 22 degrees. So this will provide plenty of heat for us. We rarely get down below negative 22, even here in Michigan. So I think we're safe with this. The other cool thing is that inside of this unit, it has a built-in pan heater. So in the winter, when it's super cold and you've got some condensation or whatever in that pan, this will actually heat the pan and make sure that all of that is melted. That way your unit can continue to run throughout the winter. Now, one thing you will notice is that we've installed a bracket on the pad to get this unit up. That is just going to make sure that we are away from any snow that does pile up around the base of the unit. That way, again, this thing can run throughout the winter with no problems. Now, as far as systems go, I do want to say that central air versus this, I can't give a direct comparison because we never had central air in this house. And as far as our bills go, this last month was June, and it's probably one of the hottest months that most of the United States has had in a very, very long time. And our total cost to condition this house continuously, we set it on about 70 to 72 degrees, and that bill was about 65 bucks. So I'm happy with that. So beneath me is the master bedroom, master bathroom, and the guest bathroom. As far as mini splits go, we opted for a ducted mini split for these 3 rooms. Now this is the slim ducted unit from Cooper & Hunter as well. And the thing that I love about this is we could put that air exactly where we needed to and kind of limit the amount of ducting that we needed. So I actually was able to build a plenum box and put a linear vent right above the window in our master bedroom. And that not only looks great, but provides the air that we need for that bedroom. And then we've got another duct that runs back to this bathroom, as well as one that runs around to that bathroom. And this unit, while it's hidden up here in the attic, it runs just like a typical central air unit, where we'll have a filter and a return, and we'll be able to change that filter just like a normal unit. And then we can control it just like we do with all the other mini splits, as far as the smart controls, the wall thermostat, and the handheld remote. While we're up here in the attic, I want to talk about air quality. So we've discussed the HVAC efficiency of the system, but the problem with airtight homes, which as you can see, we've got spray foam, so we've got a level of tightness here that is going to kind of limit the amount of outside air that can go inside. So the way that we kind of counteracted that, or made sure that the air quality in the house was good, was we installed an ERV. Now this one's from Broan. This was sized for this house. Essentially what this does is it pulls fresh air in from the outside and exhausts the stale air that's inside the house out. Now the problem with that is as fresh air comes in, if you had an older house, which this one at one time was, it would bring in fresh air from the outside that was, hot and humid in the summer or cold and dry in the winter. The good thing about an ERV is that it tempers that air as it's coming in with the outgoing air. There's actually a core inside of here that not only tempers that air, but it filters that air coming in, so that you don't have all that pollen and stuff and all those contaminants from the outside coming into the house. Now the cool thing about this unit and the capability that we had working with this house was we're not just simply dumping it into an existing ducted system. We were able to duct this ERV exactly where we wanted it to go, which means that the air that is being pulled out of the house, we were able to pinpoint the locations of the most contaminated air, which are the bathrooms and the kitchen. So this unit pulls air out of the master bathroom. It also pulls air out of the guest bathroom, and it pulls air out of the kitchen. And what that does is it is continuously running. So this is pulling the air out slowly out of all those areas all the time, and it's bringing in fresh air, and the fresh air is being dumped into the bedrooms. It's where you're going to be spending most of your time, and having that fresh, clean air in those bedrooms is the best possible solution for indoor air quality. The other nice thing about being able to exhaust the air continuously out of both bathrooms is that we don't need to worry about bath fans. Since this air is always running, always pulling out air out of those rooms, the bath fans are kind of irrelevant, which is great because my kids never seem to know how to turn those bath fans on. The other thing is that some people think, well, you can't exhaust air through a unit like this from a bathroom, and that is proven to be false. And the reason being is because a lot of people think that the moisture in the lines will get into these lines and they will cause mold and bacteria. But the good thing is that once your shower is off, this pulls all the moisture out, it goes through this unit, and then the unit continues to run day in and day out and will dry all of that condensation, that water that gets in those lines, will dry that out completely and not cause any problems. Okay, so as far as the air goes and the home performance, we've covered the HVAC system that we're using, which are mini splits and very efficient. We've also covered the air quality, which is going to be controlled by that ERV system. And now we're going to talk about just the overall air tightness of the house and how we were able to insulate and make sure that our home was extremely controlled. So now we're talking about just controlling the air in the house. We did so with spray foam insulation. We did 4 inches of closed cell spray foam on the roof deck, and that's going to give us this insulated space up here in the attic, or conditioned space in the attic. So all of our ductwork is within that conditioned envelope. In fact, the air temperature up here is only going to be a couple of degrees different than the air temperature in the house. The other thing we did was we ran that spray foam insulation down on all of our upper level walls, and we did, I think it was 3 inches, or no, maybe it was 2.5 inches on all of the exterior walls of the house, and that kind of filled up all of those gaps, or all the 2x4 framing in the walls, and gave us that kind of airtight space around the exterior of the house. But before we did that, we also wrapped the entire house in zip R sheathing, and the zip R sheathing has 1 inch of continuous foam on the outside of the framing of the house. And essentially, you think about that in the way of yourself. When you go out in the winter and you want to cover up or you want to stay warm, you put on a jacket. That's like putting on a jacket around the outside of the house instead of stuffing that insulation in between your ribs. If you've ever looked at a house on a morning where there's dew on the outside and you can see the 2x4 framing in the walls, and you can see where that condensation is not there, is there or is not there, where the studs are in the walls, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Just that heat transfer or heat loss through those studs, having that 1 inch of continuous insulation around the outside is going to make all the difference. Now, the last thing as far as insulation goes was the main level. Now, the main level is technically a basement. So there are foundation walls, and those are cement block foundation walls. And when we demoed the house, we noticed that there was some insulation, but definitely not all over, and definitely not enough insulation. So what we did was we installed the InsoFast panels, and those were 3 3/4 inch thick, and I believe that was like an R15 value, but those were simply bonded to the wall, and then that also gave us that continuous insulation around the inside of that cement block and provided the studs that we needed to hang the drywall on. As for the InsoFast panels, if you want to see the installation process, I've got an entire video on that, and I'll make sure to link that below. Now, when it came to the insulation and figuring out how much insulation we needed, I referred to the code book, and I was able to look up what is required by code. The problem with that is that they did outline, if you have continuous insulation around the house, how much that was. I think it was R3 and R15 on the inside. R3 continuous plus R15 on the 2x4 walls would get you covered in our area. The other thing was that they did not really outline the benefits of spray foam. So when it comes to spray foam, obviously you have a certain return on your investment up to a certain thickness. So if I was to add, because in our area, I believe we should have required like another 2 or 3 inches of spray foam, but the efficiency of this versus another 2 or 3 inches is not that much different. It's like maybe 1% different, if that. but the cost is obviously a whole lot more. So what I was able to do is I was able to go on to, there's a site for a res check where you can do your own res check. And if you just Google RES check, you'll be able to find that, and it will identify your area and the code for your area. You can plug in all your wall types and your window sizes and U values for your windows, and then it will tell you if your insulation meets or exceeds code. And you can kind of play with those numbers to see where you need to be to meet your code in your area. Luckily, our inspector is very easy to work with. We were able to hand him that res check for this insulation, and he said, absolutely, you're good to go. While the closed cell spray foam and the Zip R panels are great at not only insulating, but creating that air barrier, there's one common leak point, which is the foundation to sheathing connection. We were able to seal this up using Sega's Fentrum tape, which bonds incredibly well to concrete and the wood sheathing. Not only is this going to prevent any air movement through those cracks and crevices, but it's going to keep the critters out as well. So as far as the home performance goes, when we were designing this house, we did a ton of research, and we wanted to make sure that we had not only a super efficient home and less maintenance, but we also wanted to make sure that our air quality and water quality were up to par, and I think that we've achieved that. Now, I know there are a ton of different options, and I know that some of this may seem like it's too far out there for some of you that are just maybe doing a small renovation, but when it comes to new home construction or larger renovations, you may be able to take some of these aspects of this house and implement those into yours. So, until next time, be safe and happy building.